Hello and welcome to WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Nick Harper, and in this bulletin we'll get you a roundup of stories developing around the world. First up, the headlines. Following the conclusion of Moscow talks, the Kremlin says the Taliban must meet international expectations if it expects to be recognised by governments around the world. Taliban officials at the Moscow talks say that the Afghanistan government is already inclusive. The Afghan interim deputy prime minister assures that the security situation in the country is reliable and that there's no threat to its neighbours.
I'd like Indians, Israelis and the world to actually understand the shared history much better. I think today is a very good contribution to that, and I hope.
India's External Affairs Minister concludes his Israel visit by honouring India's World War I heroes. Speaking exclusively to WION, Jaishankar says the visit will help the world understand India and Israel's shared history better. Amid a record rise in daily COVID-19 deaths, Russian President Vladimir Putin supports an initiative to introduce nationwide paid non-working days from October the 30th to November the 7th, which can be extended if necessary. Buckingham Palace says the Queen is resting reluctantly for a few days after being advised to do so by her doctors, following which the 95-year-old monarch has cancelled her two-day trip to Northern Ireland. And Britain's competition watchdog fines Facebook over $70 million for failing to supply information linked to its takeover of the animated graphics startup Giphy. First today, the crucial Moscow Format Summit on the Afghan situation has been held today in Russia. Representatives of 10 countries with high stakes and deep ties to Afghanistan were in attendance, and so was a Taliban delegation. The agenda entailed formation of an inclusive government and consolidating international partners towards preventing a humanitarian as well as economic crises in Afghanistan. As Moscow hosted the Islamist regime for international talks, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov recognised the Taliban's efforts to try and stabilise the situation in volatile Afghanistan.
A new administration is in power now. This fait accompli places great responsibility on the Taliban. We note their efforts to stabilize the military and political situation and set up work of the state apparatus.
But the Kremlin also made the distinction that it recognised the Taliban as Afghanistan's de jure leaders, not de facto. Moscow said that no country is interested in seeing a paralysed Afghanistan. It clarified that its direct contacts with the Taliban were aimed at understanding developments and prospects for the country. However, Russia's invitation led to many analysts speculating that on account of its standing on the world stage, the move could potentially drag a Taliban-led Afghanistan out of isolation. Abdul Salam Hanafi, the Taliban's deputy for acting Prime Minister Mullah Hassan Akhund, led the Taliban delegation at the Moscow summit. In a statement during the Moscow meeting, Hanafi said, and I quote, "We're assured that the security situation in Afghanistan is satisfactory and there is no threat to Afghanistan. We want the international community to recognise the current government of Afghanistan. The government of Afghanistan is ready to speak with full clarity, transparency and openness to all international observers." While the Taliban expressed its hopes about gaining legitimacy on the world stage, no participating country committed to recognising the Taliban regime as the legitimate government. The 10 participating countries also pushed the Taliban for action against the Islamic State, particularly its regional faction, the ISIS Khorasan, which of late has upped the ante, leading to as many as 50 targeted attacks on Taliban leaders, as well as indiscriminate suicide bomb blasts in the capital Kabul. On the sidelines, Amir Khan Muttaqi, the Taliban's foreign minister, tried to downplay the threat of ISIS. He said that the threat was not serious and that the media should stop talking about it.
We
But just ahead of the Moscow format meeting, a Taliban vehicle was hit by an explosion in Demnazang Square, killing at least one and wounding 7 others, including 4 school students. In the past weeks, the ISIS-K has conducted 2 deadly attacks on Shiite shrines in northern and southern Afghanistan, killing dozens of people, including Taliban men. WION's Moscow correspondent Julia Chapman sent this report a little earlier. Take a look.
The Russian government is adamant that it does not recognize the Taliban yet as the legitimate government in Afghanistan. Indeed, here in Russia, the Taliban remains an extremist organization according to Russian law. Nevertheless, the officials, the Russian government, say they are taking a pragmatic approach. These are the people who are effectively controlling the country of Afghanistan at the moment, and therefore they are the ones that need to be brought into discussions. Of course, these talks in the Moscow format did happen before the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, but these were the first time that they've all met in this format since. And Russia still says that it wants many promises to be fulfilled by the Taliban before there is any talk of official recognition, and indeed about humanitarian aid, which Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says was a priority for these talks. But they've come away with no firm promises on that just yet. Russia says that it wants to see the Taliban make good on promises about cracking down on terrorism, being a more inclusive government, and indeed getting to grips with the drug trade in Afghanistan, something that Russia is also very concerned about.
Turning our focus now to the latest on the US Capitol Hill riots. A House committee investigating January's riots has unanimously voted to hold Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. Bannon was a former advisor to then-President Donald Trump. He was summoned to testify before the panel, but refused to do so. Now his fate rests with the House of Representatives that'll vote to approve the matter later this week, and then the Justice Department, which has the final say in bringing charges against him. If convicted, Bannon could face a fine and up to 1 year in prison. The right-wing radio host had refused to appear before the panel on grounds that Trump had executive privileges. Those privileges basically allow presidents to keep certain conversations with aides a secret. But Bannon was not part of the Trump administration at the time of the riots. He was fired back in 2017, and the panel says that he had no legal reason not to appear.
Mr. Bannon stands alone in his complete defiance of our subpoena. That's not acceptable. No one in this country, no matter how wealthy or how powerful, is above the law. Left unaddressed, this defiance may encourage others to follow Mr. Bannon down the same path.
Former President Trump has aggressively tried to block the committee's work. He's filed a lawsuit trying to prevent Congress from obtaining White House documents on the riots. But things don't bode well for Mr. Trump. The panel is determined to investigate every aspect of the riots thoroughly. US lawmaker Liz Cheney observed that Bannon's argument suggested Trump was personally involved in the planning and execution of the events that unfolded on January the 6th.
Mr. Bannon's and Mr. Trump's privilege arguments do, however, appear to reveal one thing. They suggest that President Trump was personally involved in the planning and execution of January 6th. And this committee will get to the bottom of that.
In January this year, thousands of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol in an effort to overturn Joe Biden's electoral victory. Rioters broke into the building, looting and vandalising it for hours. They even assaulted law enforcement officers and reporters. They'd been egged on by Trump with fiery speeches and false claims over election fraud. The Capitol complex was locked down and lawmakers were evacuated. 5 people died in the rioting and many were injured, including 138 police officers. Well, after facing heat from regulators over its business practices, reports now say that Facebook is planning to rebrand itself with a new group name that focuses on the metaverse. The name change is likely to be announced next week. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg has been talking it up. So what exactly is the metaverse? Well, metaverse is a broad term and it generally refers to shared virtual world environments, which people can have access to using the internet. The term can refer to digital spaces which are made more lifelike by the use of virtual reality or augmented reality. Metaverse is also often used to describe gaming worlds. There's also a specific type of metaverse which uses blockchain technology. In this, users can buy virtual land and other digital assets using cryptocurrency. And why is the metaverse taking off now? Well, fans of metaverse see it as the next stage in the development of the internet. Metaverse will create new online space in which people's interactions can be multi-dimensional. Viewers can immerse themselves in digital content rather than just using it. Accelerated interest in metaverse can be seen as a result of the pandemic, during which there's been increased demand for ways to make online interactions more lifelike.
Facebook is planning to rebrand itself with a new name, according to a report from tech site The Verge on Tuesday. It cited a source with direct knowledge of the matter. The report says Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg is set to discuss the rebranding at an annual conference next week and comes as the company faces intensifying scrutiny from U.S. lawmakers over its business practices. Facebook said in response that it does not comment on, quote, rumor or speculation. The rebranding would position Facebook as one of many products under a parent company, which will also oversee apps like Instagram and WhatsApp. Similarly, Google established Alphabet as a holding company back in 2015 to expand beyond its search engine and advertising businesses. The move also reflects Facebook's heavy investment in virtual reality and augmented reality as it builds its so-called metaverse, where it aims to connect over 3 billion users through several devices and apps. On Tuesday, it announced plans to create 10,000 jobs in the European Union over the next 5 years to help bolster this effort. The Verge report says a possible name for the company could have something to do with the word Horizon. Facebook recently renamed its in-development VR gaming platform Horizon Worlds.
Okay, thank you. North Korean state media confirmed that the country fired a new, smaller ballistic missile from a submarine. Analysts say Pyongyang's move could be aimed at more quickly fielding an operational missile submarine. The United Nations Security Council will hold an emergency closed-door meeting later on the matter. On Tuesday, the White House urged North Korea to refrain from further provocations.
North Korea confirmed on Wednesday it test-fired a new ballistic missile from a submarine. A day earlier, South Korea's military said a missile was fired off the east coast near Japan, from the port of Sinpo in North Korea, where Pyongyang keeps its submarines. But they couldn't determine if it was fired from a submarine or from a test barge. North Korean state media KCNA released photos that appeared to show a thinner, smaller missile than earlier submarine-launched ballistic missile designs. A smaller missile could advance more quickly on a submarine, analysts say. It may also be a previously unseen model showcased at an exhibition in Pyongyang last week. The smaller design also means more could be stored on a single submarine, although fired with a shorter range. It is the latest in a string of North Korean missile tests and comes as South Korea also develops its own weapons and tests in recent weeks. The White House urged North Korea to refrain from further provocations. Spokeswoman Jen Psaki said the US remained open to talks over North Korea's weapons programs, but Pyongyang has so far rejected those offers. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was not reported to have attended Tuesday's test.
Let's get the latest now from India, where heavy rains have triggered deadly floods and landslides. Several people have been killed so far, and the Indian Army and Air Force have been carrying out rescue operations along with state disaster management authorities. The affected states are Uttarakhand in the north and Kerala, which is located in the country's south. We begin with the hill state of Uttarakhand, where rains triggered floods and landslides. The situation is particularly bad in Nainital. Streets in the famous tourist destination were left entirely flooded. Heavy rains have caused lakes to overflow in the area, and cloudbursts have also been reported. Several houses in the state remain buried under debris. Residents were seen wading through knee-deep waters. Authorities ordered the closure of all schools, tourist and religious activities in the state. The death toll is expected to rise as several people remain missing. And the Weather Department has also warned that heavy rains will continue in the state for the next 2 days. Large parts of the state are covered by the Himalayas. And over the past years, rapid tourism and infrastructural developments have made the state prone to landslides. In the southern state of Kerala, unusually heavy rainfall has triggered floods. Evacuations are being carried out as the Weather Department warned that the state will receive heavy to extremely heavy rainfall. The state has received 135% more than the average rainfall since the start of this month. People living in landslide-prone zones are being moved to safer areas. Hundreds of relief camps have also been set up across the state. Water levels in reservoirs have hit a record high, and an orange alert has been issued for all except 2 districts. The coastal Indian state has been prone to floods. Back in 2018, severe floods claimed nearly 500 lives in Kerala. Extreme rainfall has become the new normal in India, leading to massive flash floods. This comes as climate change has made natural disasters more frequent. Next, the senator leading a congressional probe into Brazil's handling of the COVID-19 pandemic has gone all out against President Jair Bolsonaro. The senator says that Bolsonaro must be charged with homicide for alleged errors made by the government, which led to the death of thousands of people. President Bolsonaro has dismissed the report and has called it politically motivated. The 1,200-page document also alleges that the president delayed the country's inoculation campaign.
A Senate investigation in Brazil recommended on Tuesday that President Jair Bolsonaro be charged with homicide for mishandling the COVID-19 health crisis. The report was prepared by opposition Senator Renan Calheiros and said Bolsonaro's mistakes led to the death of thousands. It recommended 13 criminal charges, including genocide against Brazil's indigenous population for leaving their communities vulnerable to the virus. Meanwhile, the Brazilian president has dismissed the probe as politically motivated and did not immediately respond to a request for comment. It's unlikely he'll face a trial for charges, as they'd have to be brought by Brazil's prosecutor general, a seat Bolsonaro appointed. The nearly 1,200-page document alleges that Bolsonaro deliberately turned down early offers to purchase vaccines, which delayed Brazil's inoculation campaign and cost an estimated 95,000 lives. The report also says Bolsonaro was guided by, quote, an unfounded belief in the theory of herd immunity by natural infection and the existence of a treatment. He has been widely criticized by public health experts for rallying against lockdowns, refusing to wear a mask in public, and declaring he has not yet been vaccinated. Bolsonaro also pushed unproven remedies for the illness, such as anti-malarial hydroxychloroquine. The draft report still needs to be voted on by the Senate and could be vetoed and altered. The vote is scheduled to take place next week.
Well, that's all we have time for on today's WION Live Broadcast from Washington, D.C. I'm Nick Harper. For more news and global updates, stay tuned to WION World is One.
many other.
This is right, Arab.